Hello everybody, this is Carl at Manabu Farms. Just showing you, we're at Deep Seated Farms today, doing a concert here, and just wanted to show you this wonderful greenhouse with these tomatoes set up in it.
Oh my god.
I know. Cannot wait until we have a greenhouse this size at our property. Another wonderful greenhouse here. You can see how they got some of it covered up to keep it warmer.
The tour, we're going to start just a little bit farther back, just to, so I know who I'm talking to and how loud I need to talk. Deep-seated. I'm Eddie Tanner, I'm the owner of this farm, and we've been here just a few years. This is our 4th harvest season. I've been farming on the North Coast for 14 years, I think, somewhere in there. And finally, after 10 years of farming for other people in other places, I decided it was time to start doing it for myself. So I, tried to find a piece of land, and really my goal in finding the farmland was I really wanted to run my farm business primarily as a CSA farm, community supported agriculture farm, and one that was accessible enough where the customers could come right to the farm and actually have a whole farm experience, not just get a box of produce. So so this was really, I was really happy to find this location. Being right on the coast, we don't have the warmest climate. This land was really raw. It had almost no infrastructure. So there were easier choices for farmland, but not easier choices that also fit the description of the type of farm that I wanted to operate. So I was really lucky to find this place. I leased this land from the Arcata School District. It's 9.5 acres that they had bought at one point thinking they'd be building a school on, and trends are going the other way, but they've been holding on to it, and I'm able to lease it and feel pretty secure in leasing this land for a good while. So so we're going to walk around this farm, and you'll see if we get it that far. It's kind of a U-shaped parcel. At one point it was one nice rectangle, and then now the city of Arcata owns this field right here. So yeah, it hasn't been that long that we've been here, just a few years, and we don't have time to talk about everything, so we're just I'm going to point out a few things, and then we'll just keep walking, and yeah, you can interject with some questions as we go.
Did you have to enrich the soil a lot?
The question was, do I have to enrich the soil?
When you first got it?
Yeah, we did soil tests initially, and the soil was not that rich in a lot of things. It had been a hayfield for a number of years with no return. With cattle grazing on it, you get some nutrient cycling. If a hayfield has enough clovers in it, you get enough nitrogen coming through. This field had really just been exporting nutrients for a number of years though. So we adjusted the pH with lime and added calcium that way. We amended the phosphorus levels with some rock phosphate, which we did a bunch early on, and that's a long-term nutrient, so we won't have to do it very much anymore. Those were the main things we did. We actually did spread a small amount of azomite over the whole property for micronutrients. There still are low levels of boron, which I get hollow stems in my broccoli. It's not a big deal, but something I think about. So yeah, but we're continually amending, and yeah, we grow. I'm going to say we grow organically, but we're not a certified organic farm. So we use a lot of the methods, all the methods that you would see on organic farms, including using animal manures and cover crops for nutrients. It's all aged before we use it. We don't use very many pesticide products, but when we do, they're all OMRI listed organic things. We can talk more about that when we walk around too. And we rotate our crops. We'll talk more about that too. So, but we're not certified organic, and the main reason I made that decision is because I interact directly with most of my customers. 90% of my sales are right off the farm through community supported agriculture memberships. So I'm seeing my customers face to face on a regular basis, and they're actually coming out to the farm and seeing what I'm doing out here. So, I don't feel like there's a need for a third party in that picture. We have a direct relationship. So, and I think a lot of that's circumstantial. That's because I'm not certified organic, I don't wholesale really. I don't sell to supermarkets, because if I did, I'd be selling at non-organic prices. I wouldn't be able to, wouldn't be selling it as organic produce. So, but because I direct market almost everything, it works well. So we're at this corner of the farm. I decided to put perennials in this part of the farm because I'm right in a neighborhood, and my neighbors probably wouldn't appreciate me driving the tractor back and forth and working up, kicking up dust right by their houses many times across the season. So that was the main reason for kind of using this space for orchard. Of course, more fruit is better, but I won't claim to be any kind of fruit expert. I'm definitely learning as I'm going with the fruit trees and the berries. But they are starting to do well. We have 90 fruit trees. Most of them are apples. 60 of them are apples. The rest pears and plums. A couple other things thrown in for fun. And they're just 3 summers old, so really not doing much yet. But they're growing all right and looking healthy. The raspberries are, this is really the second year that they've produced a good flush, which is really just for the members who come for their veggies to come and pick some berries while they're here. And the blueberries, got a couple hundred blueberry bushes that also have some growing to do. So, it's always good to get a start. There's that adage about the best time to plant a fruit tree is 10 years ago. So these are 3 years in, they're getting there. So the idea is that one of these years we'll have a lot more fruit to add to the mix along with all the veggies we grow. The one fruit that we have a lot of right now are strawberries. They can be grown as an annual or short-term crop, easy to put a bunch of them in, and they like our climate. So that's what's going on here. Perennial zone. The flowers, let's walk by the flower garden on our way to the main garden. And the flowers are you-picked for the customers. So we just grow about a half acre, a little less than a half acre of flowers just to enjoy and to let people take home a bouquet when they come for their vegetables.
What did you plant? Are these flowers?
Sure. I can't get to the flowers because they're too big. Okay.
We have one, but we use it.
Yeah, well, planted them not a month ago. We plant our sweet peas in October. Yeah.
And the winter.
So we're a small farm here, but we're not so small that we can do it all by hand. We definitely use tractor equipment and tools. We just have the one tractor with just a bunch of attachments to do the things we want it to do. And so, there's definitely times I wish I had a second tractor, but we're pretty small scale. I only cultivate a couple of the crops with the tractor, mostly hand weeding. It's all hand harvesting, well, except I did get a potato digger. So, almost all hand weeding, almost all hand harvesting. So, we have our tractor and we have our toys, but we're right at that mid-scale where we're not really big, but we're big enough that we need some kind of mechanical assistance. So that's where we're at with that. Definitely still a lot of hand work going into this operation. So the question from this gentleman was about watering. We do a mix of dry farming, drip irrigation, and overhead irrigation. We use all 3 methods on different crops here. So our potatoes and winter squash, we dry farm. There's crops that don't like getting their leaves wet. We put them on drip. Things like squash, cucumbers, the strawberries are all on drip. And then we overhead irrigate a lot of the spinach, broccoli, stuff like that. So we use all 3 systems of irrigation: dry farm, drip, and overhead. But here on the coast, things don't dry out that quickly. When we overhead water, we're watering every 7 to 10 days, more like 10. Sometimes of a year we can even stretch that out to 2 weeks. And it's the same with the drip, 10 to 14 days between drip irrigations. So yeah, and every time we water though, we water really deeply and get the whole soil profile moist and then let it dry out before watering again.
So overhead water, how many hours is that for?
It's always going to depend on the output of your sprinklers. My sprinklers run for 4 hours.
Okay.
But
I know it's volume.
there's a lot of variabilities there. Yeah.
How deep do you want the water to go?
Well, basically, every time you want to water down to the point where the soil is still moist. So, the soil's had an opportunity to dry out from roots drying the plants out, from transpiration, and also from surface evaporation. You want to, every time you water, you want to make sure there's not some dry zone somewhere in the profile. So deep enough to get to where it was already moist. So we do, this farm is mostly vegetables. I saw, you saw the young fruiting plants over there, and then the other fruit, the strawberries, you can see it when we get to the end of the field if we make it that far. But the rest are just, the rest are veggies. That's definitely what we do a lot of. And because we do CSA, our goal is to really have the widest range of produce possible. And in some ways, being on the coast is a disadvantage because the hot weather stuff isn't very happy. But in other ways, being on the coast for CSA is an advantage because we can use greenhouses to get some of that hot weather stuff, and at the same time still have the cool weather stuff all the way through the summer. So our shares, all the way through the summer, we have lettuce and broccoli and spinach, really cool season items all the way through the summer. But we can complement those with some greenhouse space or with the use of row covers to get, some peppers and tomatoes, and still working on melons. We'll see about that. But there's some things we don't do. Like so far, we haven't had melon crops. We don't grow corn. It's just, climate limits those things too much. But having these greenhouses really helps us do that. So right now it's just the greenhouses you see here, and we're able to get 3 crop cycles a year out of those. So we get an early flush in the spring, and then summer crops in the summer. And then when the summer crops fade, and by November they're planted again for a winter harvest. So really intensive cycling in the greenhouses, and we're pretty likely, it's pretty sure we're going to put up about a half-acre of greenhouse space at the back end of the field. So that's, really for me, it's not so much, a lot of it, in the summer it's for customer satisfaction to have more tomatoes and melons and peppers, but also at the beginning of the season it's going to allow me to start a significant scale of harvest sooner so that I can actually start my CSA sooner. So right now we start in late April. We start harvesting in early April for farmers market, but don't start our CSA until late May, and I'm hoping to change that so we can start our CSA in mid-April.
And tell us all the people that signed up to have the extended.
Yeah, we just did a survey of our customers to see how many people would be interested in it, and it looks like over half of our customers, over half want the extended season, which works out. I don't want everybody to sign up for it right now. So half is good. And yeah, this land base, not too big of an operation, but it is enough to support. Right now we have 225 members, member households, and some of those are split. So actual numbers of individuals we're serving, I don't know, it's a lot. Well over 1,000. So small farms can produce a lot of food, and let's walk down the field and look. Yeah, just look at some of the crop plantings. We'll go this way. The question was how many people work here. We have 5 employees. Just 1 full-time and 4 part-time, and most of that is just going right into harvest help. It's keeping up with the harvest. It's definitely most of what we do.
It looks like you do a lot of weeding.
Yeah, but that's really like 1 day a week, and the other 4 days, more or less.
Really?
The other 4 and then 5, I'm here on Saturdays. Right. Yeah, so this whole end of the field is all overhead. This is a summer cover crop of buckwheat and vetch, although you can see there's plenty of weeds in here as well. So the idea with any summer cover crop is that it's going to get tilled in before any of these weeds can make seed.
Oh, come on, these are already
You want to eat
making
that?
seed.
Nah,
They've already made
it's
seed.
not mature. Nope, not mature
Pretty
yet.
close.
No, we'll be tilling this in soon. So, just as a kind of testament to how cool this summer has been, the cover crop has downy mildew on it. The buckwheat has downy mildew, which is just kind of ridiculous. It's just been so cool here this year. But I am happy to be able to get weed tills and summer cover crops in. I expanded my land base without expanding my crop production. I was double cropping most of this ground up until last year. And then this year I started, I expanded into a couple extra acres, which allowed me to use this land less intensively. So I've been able to get more weed tills. I've been able to sow summer cover. And we'll see this, because of how cool it's been, this summer cover might not really have been worth it. The amount of growth we got from, the idea with the summer cover crop is grow biomass, smother weeds. This cover crop is not really doing those things that well. Maybe in a warmer fall it would have. I don't know. I have to keep experimenting with that one. But this one's gonna get, it's gonna get turned in soon, and then a fall cover crop will get sown here.
So what does it matter? I mean, to me, it's like I see different weeds and chickweed and the nettle and everything.
Uh-huh.
And so if it's not going to seed, what's it matter if you're smothering the weeds or not? Because these are all putting good stuff back in anyway,
it wouldn't necessarily matter as long as you got it before they made seed. But the idea is that instead of letting it just be a field of green weeds, the biomass, the buckwheat should be able to grow extra biomass. The vetch should be able to fix some nitrogen during that time. Like I said, I'm a little bit skeptical of whether this has really done enough to accomplish those goals this year, but that's the idea.
Looks
Does that
good to
mean
me.
you'll supplement it, then you'll add something to it?
It's going to get turned in and then cover cropped with an overwintering cover crop.
What do you use for that?
That'll be more bell beans. There'll be bell beans, oats, and vetch. Let me get ahead of you guys, we'll keep walking. So one thing to note when you're walking down these fields is, because one of the principles of organic farming is crop rotation, we grow a lot of different crops, we need to think about, we need to have some way of knowing where crops have been and where they're gonna go. So instead of planting, in a week, say we need to plant spinach, broccoli, lettuce and carrots this week, instead of planting a bed of spinach and a bed of broccoli and a bed of lettuce right next to each other, I create blocks in the garden where those crops will go. So I create a block big enough for 8 weeks of lettuce, or how many weeks is that one? It was more than 8 weeks. That was, for me, that was a number, that was like, 8 weeks or 10 weeks of lettuce in that block. And that allows me to know, I can put it on my map on my computer and know on my records that that whole area was lettuce. And so instead of having to figure out where crops have been, on 100 different beds, it's only in like 10 blocks, something like that. It's just a lot easier to rotate that way.
And why do you rotate?
Just for pest or disease buildup. Ideally you move crops around, have long enough gaps between crops that pests and diseases can't persist from one crop to another. There are a lot of pests that are generalists, but there are also those that are specific to certain plant families that can, stay around in the soil and wait for that crop to be replanted. So, the question was, do we direct seed? We do a mix of both. We direct seed some crops and we transplant others. We don't have any transplanting machinery. It's just, our direct seeding is a small earthway push seeder, and our transplanting is all by hand. Because we don't plant large plantings of anything. Really, our strategy here is, lots of frequent small plantings. So, not too much of any one thing. That's part of why we don't have really any specialized equipment for any one crop. For this scale, it just doesn't really make sense. Here's one example of how cool the summer's been. We put our leeks under row cover because they just weren't really growing. This, the same planting date I've used for years on these leeks, they would normally be almost mature by now, and they're just small. They just really haven't grown in this fall so much. Same with the celery. So the same planting dates that I've been using over a few years that generally work, this year haven't really been working, and I ended up covering them with row cover.
What date did you plant those leeks?
What's that?
What date did you plant those
I
leeks?
can't tell you, I remember. I have
June or June?
we sowed the seed, we transplanted these in. We sowed the seed in June.
Okay, and
transplanted them
in July.
probably July,
So what do the row covers accomplish? Do they hold heat somehow? Is that the idea?
The row covers do different things depending on the crop. They can trap a little bit of extra warmth. They can act as a physical barrier against flying pests. And they can provide a small amount of frost protection. So those are the main things that we use them for, and it just depends on the crop or the time of year, kind of which function they're fulfilling. In the spring, when it's super windy here, they also act as a windbreak over the crops. So, yeah.
Oh, sure. Carrots, something like that takes forever. Otherwise, you're down there.
So yeah, these are the beans we've been harvesting. There was another succession back there, and this is what I mean about small plantings frequently over the season. You know, each of these bean crops is really only going to give us 2 weeks of harvest. We try to get like 2 heavy harvests off each crop here, or I should say 2 weeks of heavy harvest off each of these crops, and then we move on. So in order to have enough beans to last as long as bean season can last, we're sowing beans every 2 weeks during that window. So that's known as succession planting, and that's how we get, you know, a steady supply of beans for as long as beans will grow outside here. And then when it's getting too cold for the beans, we switch back to peas. Peas will grow all the way through the summer in Arcata, but it's too much work for me to pick beans and peas at the same time. So we wait till the beans won't do it anymore, get the peas in. We'll see if this one makes it. No, the question was, you know, do I make my living off this? Yes, this is 100% of my income from this farm. Well, not 100%. I teach classes in the winter, which are like a small fraction of my income. But you know, I teach classes. I wrote a book that brings in some revenue. So you know, it's good to have some other source of income, but I definitely do live off.
Well, if I don't think we trimmed up there, you just really aphids and some more. They probably didn't have it running.
So yeah, the Brussels sprouts are getting close.
I only grow dwarf Brussels sprouts. Mine are all so small. I was like, what is this?
That's a great question. So the question was cabbage moth control, cabbage butterfly control. That white butterfly that lays the green caterpillar, that makes the green caterpillars that chew up all the brassicas. We get the vast majority of our control just by turning in crops quickly. So we don't keep our broccoli around for side shoot production, because by tilling that after the main heads, by tilling those broccoli plants in, the pupae can't mature. Or chrysalises, which are they? Pupae or chrysalis? Chrysalis.
We'll let you off the hook.
The bug.
Close enough.
So you know, we get most of the control that way, but we also do use BT once a year. So far for the last 3 years, it's been once a year that we spray it on the fall plantings, and only some of those got it. So that's one of those organically acceptable pesticides. It's a bacteria, a culture of a bacteria that's poisonous to the caterpillars. So they have to eat enough of it, so you have to do it before there's too much of a problem, because they have to ingest a certain amount of it before they die. So yeah, we've used, so far, the last 3 years we've used BT once a year on, and not even on everything, just on this one window of fall crops. So actually none of that, but this part of this field. So we do use a few crop control, a few pesticidal products, but at this point all of them, is that true? Almost all of them. So we use neem oil, which is like a plant extract. We use a couple plant extracts, but then the rest of what we use are all biologicals, like cultures of organisms that provide either fungal or insecticidal control. And of course we try to use them as little as we think we need to. So
So is this a carrot crop too?
yeah, so that is a new carrot variety that was supposed to be nice and red. Red carrots are,
Right.
elusive and don't usually taste good, but I keep trying to find a red carrot because they're pretty. And I tried a new red carrot that decided to just bolt instead of making carrots.
Wow.
So the middle row was that red carrot. It was Kyoto red, and they just all bolted, pretty much. Like they didn't all bolt, but 75% of them or more.
Yeah, I think all the varieties that I've grown have bolted no matter what time of year or whenever you planted them.
Yeah, so red carrots, I'm done. Forget red carrots. So
I like orange carrots. Can you grow orange carrots?
yeah, we can definitely grow orange carrots. So,
White does good here too.
So these, we grow some rainbow beds. That's what
They
these
actually have a white
carrots,
carrot.
those rainbow
Yeah.
beds.
Yeah.
We do, a purple carrot and a yellow carrot, and the idea was to have that red one. But, and then most of our carrots are orange, though. We still stick with mostly OP carrots. We had been growing improved Scarlet Nance. This year we switched to Hilmar. So for our main orange carrot crop, we do mostly OP varieties. But then I do plant a fall hybrid. The last 2 beds under row cover here are Bolero. And I was experimenting this year with another hybrid that resists rust fly, called Fly Away. So we'll see how how it does. But it is also under row cover. The problem is, if your row cover was in perfect shape, it could exclude, and if you got it on early enough, it could exclude all the flies from laying their eggs that chew up the carrot. But the ravens peck holes in my row cover, or a bed like this one, we didn't get it weeded in time to put a row cover on, and there's no way I was going to cover it without weeding it because it would just get taken over. So so this bed, we're having a little bit of rust fly damage in this bed, but not too bad. But we'll probably start seeing more in this bed until we get to the ones that we weeded and covered in time. So
How tall do your carrots before you think you get rust fly?
I don't actually know. For me, it seems like it's a time of year. It's like once we get into August, the rust fly shows up. So I try all the carrots that are young enough in August. I try to get weeded and covered as soon as possible.
Okay.
I have a question about the BT. Is that a bacteria that the plants are naturally do they ever naturally come into contact with it, or like humans?
Yeah.
Do we?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
It's a soil bacteria, so it's in the soil. Yeah.
It's in the soil, but how much would we normally or plants normally come into contact with?
It is.
Well, you give it a little more so that they come in contact with it a little more, but
yeah,
I was just wondering.
Lot more.
Yeah. A lot more.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if that was completely foreign or not, or.
Right, I don't think it is completely foreign, but there's different strains as well, and some of them are probably not native strains.
Yeah, I think most of what they
Okay.
would do for organic
Cool.
production is actually.
So there's food being served. That was the announcement. We're going to keep touring a little bit longer, but I won't keep you too long from the food.
But not that you can't buy.
Question on these row covers too. Apparently the plants will just push them up with them. It's not so heavy that it doesn't.
Right, they are sometimes called floating row covers for that reason. They just rest right on the plants. I do use hoops under the row covers in the early and the latest part of the seasons because of either wind damage or frost damage. So sometimes I will use hoops under the row cover, but most of the time they just float over the crop.
What about the rain? Does that ever weigh it down?
They're not that heavy. The plants can handle it.
Wow.
Yeah, plants tend to love it here.